Now we are in a glorious time of the year. We're looking forward to our first morning sit. I want to sit a morning sit near a bedding area, especially a bedding area, a cruising area. You know, during the first sits in the pre-rut, you might not see a lot of cruising. You could see some cruising, but I definitely want to be in a bedding area where it's a cold morning temperature and deer, especially mature bucks in that bedding area, are actively moving around. In order to have that opportunity, you want that bedding area to be on average 300 yards back from a food source, 400 yards. That's just average of all habitats. Bigger woods, timber, further, smaller concentrated pockets of cover that could be closer. But bottom line is 300 to 400 yards back from a major food source, and you're getting to the backside of that bedding, not walking through the food to get in there in the morning, and you're waiting for those deer to come back to you, especially in the form of mature bucks, because you're right on the outside of that bedding area. What I'm looking for is that major morning temp drop compared to every other day that week. You could have all things fairly boring, which it is over the next week, 10 days. However, we're seeing 50-degree mornings down into the 30s, and I looked at a lot of cities. And I looked at Shawano, Wisconsin, Cincinnati, Ohio, Bedford, Indiana, and Princeton, New Jersey. If you look at all those, Friday is a definite day for all those. The only thing I would comment about, like Cincinnati, Ohio, Bedford, Indiana, maybe even Princeton, New Jersey a little bit, we're still on the early side in those areas for the pre-rut. Your pre-rut might be more another 5 to 7 days, more towards the end of October. So if I was going to take a chance on a morning sit, it'd be these times. These are the first, for all those areas, some of the first mornings this fall that are in the 30s. And in our case, you might even see the high 20s, which I think we will. So Friday is our day too. So it's pretty crazy how this is sweeping across the country. That morning focus for sitting in a bedding area, pre-rut, that's when a lot of my best bucks have fallen. Some of my oldest bucks have fallen. I'm looking for wind change. So when you see that morning focus, a lot of you have high winds, 14-mile sustained winds, 20 mile an hour with gusts of 30, 35 plus. You're not going to see as much movement on a morning like this, but the next morning, when it's a little bit quieter. Afternoon, evenings, Dylan, what do you think? But afternoon, evenings, I don't like when it's quiet. Morning, I like when it's quiet.
Yeah, I think it depends on your access. Like, so I think about a quiet evening and how invasive am I getting. I always feel like every step almost hurts as I'm taking into the woods on those super calm evenings. Not that I don't think the deer are going to move, but I just think that my invasiveness really goes up.
Well, I think that could be in the afternoon, evening. We're trying to get closer to bedding areas.
Mm-hmm.
On deer that are already in the bedding area.
Yes,
when
exactly.
We're going in the morning, we're going way around food and getting into a bedding area where we don't expect deer to be there for another hour and a half after daylight.
For sure, absolutely.
So I could see that. I think it seems like too on our cameras, we see less movement when it's flat calm.
Right.
No, and so we're in the morning, a lot of times it's calm just because of the time of the day.
Right.
Evening can be hit or miss. If it's super quiet, maybe not as much movement. But I'm looking at wind change. So for us, Friday morning, I think it's sustained 5-6 miles an hour, which is perfect. Down from 18 miles an hour the day before. So when you have that kind of wind drop, sustained winds with gusts from 35 dropping down to 10, big difference. It's not that there's no wind, it's just that there's an extreme decrease in wind change. And I want you to focus on let's talk about the weather real quick and why we do this, because it works. And a lot of the comments down below, we'll talk about it. If you're from one of these cities, give us a hi and say hello. We just pick random cities. I'm sorry, but I didn't even know there's a Princeton, New Jersey. Dylan found it by looking through the New Jersey map. We just picked a city. So Bedford, Indiana is one of my first areas I turkey hunted with a friend named Paul Higginbotham. I think it was down that way. Sorry, Paul, if it wasn't the exact location. But that was when I was 18, a long time ago. That was literally 1988, so a little while ago. But anyways, we're looking at the weather because it works. And it's worked for a long time for a lot of people. And for those of you that are weather doubters, I want you to look at some cancel sits. And what I mean by that is heavy fog, deer don't move. Just get a bunch of trail cameras and watch them. Heavy rain, blizzard, high winds, extreme heat, and even during the winter months, December, sometimes late November when there's no rut, when you have extreme cold in the morning, let's say you wake up at southeast Ohio and it's negative below 0 Fahrenheit. The deer are going to sit at daybreak because they don't want to move during the coldest portion of the day because they're just burning more energy to stay alive. They'd rather huddle, stay cuddled, and during that really cold, intense time. And that's why a lot of times late morning activity can pick up, because that's when they're standing up browsing during the middle of the day when it's the warmest, just to help conserve energy while they're intaking more calories to burn energy. So you just look at these extremities of the weather. Deer don't move. So to say that weather doesn't influence deer movement is just hogwash. And especially when it's a linear movement where they're moving greater distance from point A to point B, from bedding to feeding. And what ends up happening is, yeah, they can move this same distance around in a very small bedding area as they're browsing and they get up and they don't move. But we're talking about a hunting situation where deer actually move by you and present themselves for a shot. So even if they're not moving a further distance total, they're moving further distance from point A to point B. I hope that makes sense. Instead of standing all around in a postage stamp sized area and moving a meter at a time and tripping off the collar and giving you the illusion that they're moving a lot when they really didn't because of that weather, at least from point A to point B. So we're really focusing on morning, wind change coming up, and this morning is a cool opportunity. And I was kind of surprised when I looked, and this was all Friday, centering around Friday. You can see Bedford, Indiana could be Thursday, Friday, both days in the 30s. Princeton, New Jersey could be Friday, Saturday, both mornings in the 30s. I'll make one quick point. When you see the forecast and you'll look at, just look ahead, and whatever it is right now, whatever day, just look ahead a few days, and let's say it's Saturday, and you look, and Saturday's high is 57 and the low is 33 on Saturday. That means if that's Saturday right here and that's your high and low, this 33 applies to Sunday morning. So it's not the low that refers to that day, it's the next day's morning forecast. So I hope that makes sense, but the low for Thursday is Friday's morning low. And that's what it is. And so in order to look for the Saturday morning, you'd have to look at the previous day on Friday for their low, and that will give you Saturday morning. I hope that makes sense. But we're focusing on morning for good reason. They move around a lot during this pre-rut. We're focusing on that wind change this week. We look at these cancel sits where you don't want to hunt, and the rest is what you do. But bottom line is, Friday's looking like a really good day. Sorry for all you employers out there, but I think that especially as you go further north here, you know, maybe Bedford, Indiana is too far south for this pre-rut activity. But when you get into that pre-rut activity for some of these northern states on Friday morning is not a bad time to take off work and go sit in a stand for the first rut sit of the year and enjoy a beautiful morning bedding area sit on the outside of that bedding, getting around food in the morning and enjoying one of the best days that this season has to offer. Yeah, I really appreciate you watching all the way to the end. Your followers really appreciate and taking the time. I wanted to mention we have our last minute food plots you can check out at Pure Wildlife Blends. We have a lot of different seed varieties, especially our fall power greens. We have ways to establish clover this time of year, rye, a lot of different goodies. We also have our client visits. We've already started scheduling for this year, December through next August. So there's 5 of us going to client properties. Make sure you check that out. And then finally, our books and web classes. They're great Christmas presents this time of year is when they really start to sell. So really appreciate you watching. Just check out Whitetail Habitat Solutions, or for this food plot seed company, purewildlifeblends.com. Thank you.